StrayAllDay.com.
You're now tuned into the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative, which is the go-getter energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then we put all this together into a series of frameworks, approaches, insights, strategies, and techniques underneath the umbrella of one unifying philosophy that is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic is the art of strategic thinking. Now, before we get into this, I remind you all of two things. First of all, my daily motivation and Monday motivation message, guaranteed to have you focused, sharp, and on point. All you have to do to receive this is be a part of my texting community. It is free to join. Send a text to the following number, 305-384-6894. Once we start sending that message out again, you'll be getting that straight to your phone. Secondly, Work on Your Game University. That is where we work with top 2% performers, those who are already there, those who are aiming to be there, who have ambitions about being there, those of you who want to take yourself on a new path. Maybe you're transitioning out of the military, maybe out of professional sports, maybe out of corporate America. Maybe you're just getting out of college and you just want to do something other than what you see a whole lot of other people around you doing. Go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. That's where you can learn more about what we are doing, and you can get yourself started as a member of the university. Again, that's all at workonyourgameuniversity.com. With that out the way, let's get into the topic, which is the art of strategic thinking. Now, the word strategic is defined as relating to the identification of long-term or overall aims and interests and the means of achieving them. So this masterclass today is about how to think based on that definition, considering your long-term and overall aims and how you're going to go about doing it. That's strategic thinking. Considering your long-term and overall aims, assuming that you have them, and then how you're going to go about doing it. All right, simple as that. Do I need to give any more information as far as the background of this? I don't think so. So let's get right into it, and you'll understand it as we get into the points. Point number one. Topic, once again, is the art of strategic thinking. First things first. This is the first point. What are your long-term goals? This is the first question. All right, this question may stump some people because you have never considered if you had long-term goals or what they are. All right, what are your long-term goals? Where do you want to be 1 year from now? 5 years, 10 years, 20 years from now? What will your life, business, family, and career look like? Are these things that you have put any deep thought into, and have you committed them to paper? Do you have them written down? If you do not, if you can't answer affirmatively to all the questions that I just asked, you haven't done enough long-term thinking about your future to even consider acting in a strategic manner. You can't act in a strategic manner if you haven't done any strategic thinking. Remember that the process, folks, is be, do, have. 1, 2, 3. So if you have not thought about your long-term strategy, then there's no way that you can act in a strategic way because you aren't thinking strategically. You can act in a tactical way. You can act in a haphazard way. But you can't act in a strategic way if you haven't done any strategic thinking. So the strategic thinking is about answering questions like the ones that I just posed to you. What does your life 1 year, 5 years, 10 years from now look like? We're talking business life, career life, family life, financial life, personal life, fitness life, nutrition life, health life, all aspects of your life that matter to you. What does it look like in the future? Once you have a clear picture of what you want it to look like, now we can map out a plan for where you want to go and how you're going to go about getting there. But we can't do that without the vision and a clear ideal listed. And this needs to be committed to paper, everybody. Your long-term plans need to be committed to paper. These are not things that you just have in your head. All right, so strategy requires having a long-term plan, and a long-term plan is based on a long-term vision. You make a plan based on achieving the vision based on where you are right now. Most people don't have long-term plans, even though most people live long-term lives and work in long-term careers. Many of you will live a life that is 50, 60, 70 plus years in length, yet you haven't thought about all 50, 60, 70 plus years. Or let's say, given the years you lived already, how many you think you have left? All right, have you thought about what you want to do with the rest of these years that you have, however many you're going to have? Have you considered it? Have you considered what's going to be around after you're gone? If there are people who are in your care or for whom you are responsible, what happens after that? In your careers, many of you have been in careers 10 plus years. Have you thought about what the next 10 years of your career are going to look like, or how you want them to look, or how you plan on, or maybe what you may need to change as far as who you are as a person in order to get from here to where you want to be 10 years from now? Have you considered these things? And again, have you committed them to paper? So we got to have a long-term plan. We need a long-term vision. All right. Many people live long lives and have long careers, but they have never thought about what these lives and careers are going to look like or how they want them to look. The challenge, if you don't think about how you want it to look, then it ends up looking however it decides to look, which is not based on your input because you didn't do any long-term thinking. So it just ends up how it ends up. Now, listen, if you're very good and hardworking and you're in the right place, it may end up looking good anyway, even though you didn't plan on it looking good. You just went and did your work and it just worked out for you. All right, congratulations to you. I would suggest, here's what I offer you to you. Here's what I would offer to you is that had you taken the time to actually plan what you wanted, it could have looked even better than it does. Some of you are in situations right now in your life that just happened, and it's a good situation because you were just working and working, and you just kept working, just kept doing stuff on a tactical level, never really thought about strategically where do I want to be, and you just ended up in a good space. Congratulations to you. I would suggest you would be in an even better space had you actually planned it. And since you can't go backwards, so let's think about the next 5 or 10 or 20 years. Where do you want to be? If you plan it and you have a clear vision, you're much more likely to get there than you are likely to end up luckily in a good space like you did this time around. All right, don't depend on luck more than once. See, for this reason, many people end up in places that they did not expect or plan to be in, and often places that they don't want to be in, along with the lack of expectation or plan, because they simply ended up where life chose to put them, combined with their in-the-moment maneuvering, which is also known as being a tactician, just managing things in the moment. Something happens, you do something. Something else happens, you do something. That's tactical. Tactical is you're just responding to what's happening in front of you. Challenge with doing that is you never get a chance to catch your breath and look at the big picture of what you're doing, i.e. seeing the forest from the trees, as we say. And because you never took a thought about the big picture, well, the big picture ends up however it decides to end up without your input. That's not a good place to be. For the most part. Again, sometimes it can work out for you, but I wouldn't bet on that. The good news is, again, if you're a very good tactician and good at maneuvering, you can end up looking good, right? Despite the fact that you had no plan. But you have much more control over the process when you think about it ahead of time. Would you agree? Your mind, combined with the human brain, that's the most capable tool known to man is the human brain and or the mind. And if you were to put that to use, along with being a hard worker and smart and having all the tools and the resources and desires and all of those things, I think it would help you do better than if you didn't employ your brain in the process. So you don't want to just be moment by moment reacting to everything. That's what we call living in tactical hell. And you don't want to be living in tactical hell. I talked about that in episode 23, 28. Point number 2. Today's topic, once again, is the art of strategic thinking. Number 2, things that I'm talking about here today. Thinking long term. These are not tactics. I just talked about tactics a lot there in the first point. Many people think that they're being strategic when they're simply being tactical. All right. And it's not that tactics are not useful. Again, you being able to think on your feet and respond in a moment to something that is happening in front of you is something that we do every single day. All right. Every day you are making tactical decisions. But tactical thinking is much more reactionary and is much more about the moment that you're in right now, whereas strategic thinking is much more responsive, is about planning ahead for the moment that you have not yet gotten to. It's about thinking about your future before you get to the future. Most people don't have a choice but to be tactical and to think tactically all the time because they do not take the time to think, plan, or future pace strategically. So they're stuck dealing with the moment because that's the only thing that they have. And it's not that they don't have access to thinking about the future. It just never occurs to them to think about the future. Some of you listening to this are guilty of this. The good news is it's occurring to you right now because you're listening to me talk about the future. So some people are stuck in the moment. And again, there's nothing wrong with being in the moment. Being in the moment actually is a good idea. If you ask someone who's into meditation or yoga or mindfulness, you want to be in the moment. All right? And I want to be in the moment too. At the same time, we got to take the moment and think about the future because the future is coming whether we think about it or not. All right, so you should plan for the future because it's coming. Whether you plan for it or not, you still have to live there. And the situation may be different in the future than it is now. So you should set yourself up for success before you get to success. Remember, successful people plan ahead. Number one hallmark of a professional is preparation. Professionals prepare by doing their homework. Thinking about what's coming before it comes and preparing yourself for it before it happens. That's what high-level performers do. If you want to be a high-level performer when it comes to your life in general, You need to think about your future before you get to the future. Simple as that. Right, again, this is what doing your homework is about. All right, you know there's going to be a quiz tomorrow, so you do your homework. So you better know the material. So when the quiz comes, you're not allowed to look at the textbook. You know some of the material, or at least you can hold it in your flash memory long enough to pass the quiz. All right, that's the point. Again, these are not tactics. This is about being strategic, thinking ahead before the thing happens. Tactical thinking is, again, reactionary and in the moment. Strategic thinking is responsive and considering the future. Most people don't have a choice but to be tactical, again, because they haven't done anything else, so they're left with one thing. This is why many people think they're strategic when they're simply very good tacticians. Someone who's a very skilled tactician can just react in a moment to everything in front of them, and they can look really good doing it, and they can be successful doing it, and that may fool them and others into thinking, well, this is all I got to do to be successful. I can just keep doing this. It works until it doesn't work. It works until you don't have the energy or the awareness to keep reacting in the moment to everything. And then you realize, damn, I should have took some time to think about the future so I didn't have to keep doing this. All right, being tactical is like running on a treadmill. Being tactical is like running on a treadmill. I run on treadmills sometimes. Usually don't like it. I'd rather run outside than run on a treadmill. But every once in a while, I'll be on a treadmill, whether it's some crazy rainy weather outside or is a little bit too cold. Now, Miami doesn't never get that cold. Sometimes it does get kind of ridiculously cold here. I'm talking like 40s. I'm not running outside if it's like that. I'll run on a treadmill. Or if I'm coming back from, let's say I've taken some time off or I had some type of injury or something, I'll run on the treadmill once or twice before I go outside just to make sure my legs are good and ready to go. Tactical thinking and tactical behavior is like running on a treadmill because you will go very fast, but you don't go anywhere. You're using a lot of energy. The time is going by and you're moving fast, but you're not going anywhere. You're not moving from one point to another. You're still in the same spot. As soon as you hop off the treadmill, you're in the same spot you were on when you got on the treadmill, even though you gave all that time and all that energy to the task. That's how tactical thinking looks and feels. And again, this is what tactical hell feels like. I'm doing all this stuff, putting in all this effort. I'm still in the same spot. How is that possible? So a good tactician can be very successful because they are good at responding or reacting in the moment. They are skilled. They're relatively smart. And you mix in some good luck, you can get a great outcome through that. Some of you I just described. Some of you right there. You are good at reacting in the moment. You are skilled. You're relatively smart. And you mix in a little bit of good luck. You can look good just being a tactician. And you can get great outcomes through simple tactical behavior. Problem occurs when your tactics either stop working or they just don't work. And eventually, let me let you in on something. Eventually, this happens to every tactician. Eventually, every tactician realizes that, okay, these tactics alone are not going to keep working. I had to pivot, I had to do something different. And hopefully you decide to become strategic rather than just getting better at tactics and get better at a different set of tactics. Unfortunately, I'll tell you the sad ending to the story. Most tacticians never stop being tacticians. They never morph from tactician to strategist because they just keep doing what they're used to doing. Right? Human beings, that's who we are. Law of inertia. Non-object in motion tends to remain in motion in the same direction in which it was in motion until or unless acted upon by an outside force. Most people, if tactics got them to point A, they're going to keep using tactics when they arrive at point B and keep using them as C, D, E, and F, even if they're not getting the same results they were getting before. They're going to keep doing the same things because the human animal is designed to keep doing the same stuff that we've always been doing. This is also known as habits. This is why most people don't change. I can calmly and confidently assert most people do not change because of the law of inertia. This is science why people don't change. For example, I remember when I'm trying to think how this happened. So when I was just talking about this on a podcast. I was recording somebody else's show today. I was putting content online back in, I started in 2005, but around 2010 is when I started monetizing things. 2009, 2010. I started creating products. I was now getting ad revenue because Google purchased YouTube and now they're running ads on videos and now I can make ad revenue. I was writing books. I started to create courses and offer coaching and things like that. And I remember there were some algorithm changes that happened on apps like YouTube, which is where I was finding most of my audience at that time. And when they made the algorithm change, it affected people like me because my stuff wasn't getting seen at the same levels as before because they changed the algorithm to basically promote people who were doing certain things and demote people who were doing other things. I was doing some of the other things, so it was demoting me. And it took me a while to realize that because of the algorithm change, the same things that I was doing before weren't going to happen the same way. And it took me some time to realize that. And once I realized it, I said, okay, I had to pivot way that I'm doing things there, or I need to go find something else to do if I don't want to pivot and play their game. I generally decided that I didn't want to pivot and play. I didn't want to play their game, so I decided to pivot to doing other things. It took me outside of being a quote unquote YouTuber. I never considered myself a YouTuber because I was playing professional sports and I was writing books and selling programs in addition to making videos. I guess technically that makes me a YouTuber because I was making videos, but I was never only focused on making videos. I didn't want to put myself in that spot because that would require me to do whatever YouTube said, and they would basically have me by the balls business wise if they decided that they didn't like me anymore and I didn't have any other alternatives. So again, a way of thinking strategically is thinking, okay, what if the thing that's working for me now stops working? What else can I do? What else do I bring to the table? How can I introduce those things now to my situation so that if and when something goes wrong with this one, I got these other things going on? That's a way of thinking strategically, thinking about the future before it happens, or a future that may never happen, but just in case, you're ready for it. All right, point number 3. One last thing on point number 2. For some people, this happens sooner. For some people, it happens later when you're being tactical, that you realize that being strategic is actually a thing that you need to do, or you realize that your tactics are not working. But this happens to everybody who is merely operating via tactics. If you are operating without a long-term strategy and you don't understand the fundamentals and the principles of the business that you're in, and the example that I just gave you of myself, I did not understand the fundamentals and principles of business back then. I know them now, but I didn't know them back then. So when you're doing that, you have to operate tactically, and eventually that's going to catch up to you. It's going to stop working, and you're going to need to make a change, or you're going to basically get buried in quicksand. Point number 3. Now, today's topic, once again, is the art of strategic thinking. Number 3, strategic thinking takes into account everything that you want to go your way, along with everything that might not go your way, and factors in the contingencies and different options for how to get to where you want to go, even if your chosen route does not happen the way that you expected it to happen. It's a long sentence. Let me paraphrase it. Being a strategic thinker means you're looking at everything that you want to happen, combined with everything that you don't want to happen, and it factors in all your other options for how to get to your destination, even if the route that you thought was going to take you there doesn't work. That's strategic thinking. So what is the goal? See, it leaves space for and takes into consideration that things change in the future in ways you could not predict in the present. There are things that are going to happen 3 years from now that none of us could predict right now was going to happen. Most of us cannot predict what's going to happen. But now it's here, and we're like, damn, how did I not see this? It happens all the time. In 2004, for example, who could have predicted that we would have the type of technological tools on our hands that we have now? I don't think anybody could have predicted that. Maybe Steve Jobs and some of the people at his level of being on the cusp of what's happening technologically, maybe they could have guessed it, but probably not even him either. Who could have guessed 20 years ago that we'd be living the way that we do, to where you can talk to somebody through just holding a phone in the palm of your hand. You can see their face and their expressions and literally have a conversation with them on a phone while you're looking at them and they're looking at you. Very few people could have predicted that. And even those who predicted it would not have been believed. That's the key. Because there are people out there who did predict things and they either were ignored or people just didn't believe them, or they burned their books, burned them at the stake. So someone who ends up successful 20 years later in 2024 could have been a strategic thinker simply by leaving space for how they would get to their ultimate goals, not specific in which tools or processes or goals or processes they would use. I know that for my future success, I will be using my communication skills, whether written or verbal, but I'm open as far as what tools I will use to get my points across. I don't care what tools are. If there's a new tool that comes out that's better than the ones that I use, and I'll use that tool. But some of the tools that, again, we'll be using 10 years from now, they don't even exist today, let alone is there a clash between one tool and another tool. Some tools don't even exist that you're going to need in the future. But you don't even know that they don't exist because you only know they are. And when they exist, you're going to say, damn, I wish they had this 5 years ago, but had to come around when it came around. So the whole point here, folks, to be a strategic thinker, leave space for how you will get to your ultimate destination by focusing instead on the what you want, and also that why. That why matters a lot too, because that why gives you energy. The why is your motivation, is your drive to keep doing what you're doing. And you're going to need drive because if you're going to be doing something that other people haven't done, or you want to do something that most other people haven't done, I'm assuming I'm talking to the high performers out here, the high achievers, there's going to be a lot of time you spend having not achieved anything, at least related to your main goal. You are not really come close to getting to it, but you still got to live. You still got to show up every day, and you got to keep going. You got to have the grit, the toughness, the mental toughness, the resilience to keep trying, the persistence. So you got to know what your tools are. You got to know what you're capable of. You got to know what you're not capable of. And again, think strategically. How can I make this work given my current resources and my goals? Point number one. The topic is the art of strategic thinking, relating to our identification of long-term or overall aims and interests and the means of achievement. Number one, first things first, what are your long-term goals? What do you want to be 5, 10, 20 years from now? If you know what your long-term goals are, then you give yourself an opportunity to start planning for actually reaching them. Number two, these are not tactics. Our tactics are reactions in the moment. It's like playing whack-a-mole, where a strategy is big pictures, like looking over the whole map of the entire terrain, not just the little part that you can see with your eyes in front of you right now. Most people set themselves up to only be tactical because they don't take time to think, plan, or future pace their lives in a strategic way. Point number three, strategic thinking rather, take into account everything that you want to go your way, along with everything that might not go your way. In fact, there's contingencies and different opinions, different options rather, for how to get to where you want to go, even if your chosen route doesn't happen the way that you have expected it to happen. Leave space for it. Takes into consideration that things change in the future in ways that you cannot predict in the present. In other words, your strategy does not mean you know exactly how things are going to go, because you cannot predict the future. But you plan to know that you plan on running into things that you don't even know exist right now, and knowing that you'll be able to deal with them one way or another. All right, that is part of strategic thinking. All that said, text me so you're in my community. Also, workonyourgameuniversity.com. You are a top level performer. You're a top 2%er, or you want to be one. Go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. You can see what our program is about, and you can take the next step to join us. Work on your game. Dre, all